am very excited today because I have a real treat for you. Not only this modern classic is so much fun to read, but also all the action happens during the springtime. So this is a perfect book to read right now. Hello amazing humans on the net. Today we're talking about a book I discovered by accident when browsing books in my local independent bookstore, and I'm so happy I did because I honestly think this is probably my favorite read of this year so far. And the book I'm talking about is The Franchise Affair by Josephine. As you may have guessed from the edition of the book, which is a Green Penguins edition reserved for crime novels, this is a crime novel. However, it's not a crime novel in a way that you would think about Agatha Christie's novels, for example. Even though I wouldn't go as far as calling it a literally crime novel, I think it's definitely intelligent crime novel, going beyond just solving a crime. And that's because huge focus in this book is on the characters and on human nature and on motivation of human beings. I will give you an overview of the setting and the key characters without any spoilers, of course, in just a second. But before we do that, I think it's worth mentioning the author of the book. Although I think because she's Scottish, she is fairly well known here in the UK. I certainly have never heard about her before. So Josephine was a Scottish author. She lived around the same time as Agatha Christie. This book, by the way, was published in 1948. And Josephine was her pen name. Her real name was Elizabeth Mackintosh. She also had another pen name that she used just to write her plays, because she also was a drama writer. So she was this PE teacher who, after teaching PE for a while in England, in a couple of different places, returned to Scotland, to Inverness, to keep house for her father after her mother died. And this is where she remained until her death, until she was 55. She died fairly young. She had cancer, I believe. And she is supposed to be this very introvert person. She never gave any interviews. She referred to her writing as her yearly knitting. So she very much did it out of love. She was obsessed with books. She was described by her neighbors as always reading, and they were saying that even when she would leave the house just to walk to a taxi, she would be doing that while reading a book. But yes, she never got married or had children. However, she was fairly successful because one of her plays was produced in a West End theatre, and it was very popular at the time. Apparently, people kept going back to see it multiple times. I haven't read any of her plays. All I read was this novel, and I'm definitely going to read her other 7 crime novels which she wrote. I need to tell you that this was such a binge read. Once you start reading this book, you can't stop reading it. It's so much fun. It's written in this beautiful, economical but beautiful language, and most importantly, quietly funny. So, what's this book about? We follow the story through the eyes of a solicitor. His name is Robert Blair. This is definitely, by the way, a small town mystery. So if you like small town setting, this is a perfect book for you. And so we follow through Robert's eyes this story in which we have a couple of key characters, a mother and a daughter being an adult daughter in her 40s, and her elderly mother living alone in this house. And even though they live in a small town, they live on the outskirts of town, and they are fairly new arrivals to the town because they inherited the house and they like to keep to themselves, and they are being accused of a crime. And so Robert, this local solicitor, who's actually wills and conveyancing solicitor, so not a crime solicitor, gets involved in this case. And from page 1, you really get to know Robert and you get to like him. He's not your typical detective, he's definitely amateur detective. And you get to like him because from page 1, you get to know him and you get to understand his feelings, his thoughts, and also where he is at in terms of his life, you know? Let me read you the first paragraph because it's brilliant. And also it will give you an idea on the language that you will find in this book, which again, throughout the whole book, it's got this underlying sense of humor. Listen to this. It was 4 o'clock of a spring evening, and Robert Blair was thinking of going home. The office would not shut until 5, of course, but when you are the only Blair of Blair, Hayward and Bennett, you go home when you think you will. And when your business is mostly wills, conveyancing and investments, your services are in small demand in the late afternoon. And when you live in Milford, where the last post goes out at 3:45, the day loses whatever momentum it ever had long before 4 o'clock. And the next few paragraphs let us get into Robert's head, and we immediately know that even though he has this superbly content life, something's amiss, and that is going to kind of play a key role in this story. I'm not going to tell you anything more about the plot other than what's already included in the blurb on the back, which is the type of the crime. So this is not a murder. It's a kidnapping, actually, of a 15-year-old girl, because the elderly woman and her 40-year-old daughter that I've just mentioned, they are accused of kidnapping this girl and keeping her for a month as a house slave. And by the way, I didn't realize until today that this story is actually based on facts. Josephine Tay often used real stories as basis for her novels. There was an accident that happened to her also as a PE teacher, which she also used in one of her stories. So, going back to the franchise affair, the title comes from the fact that that was the name of the property, the franchise, where the two women lived. And those two women, by the way, are fantastically written. The elderly mother is the type of character that comes to mind when you think about Old Lady Grantham of Downton Abbey. If you like that character, you're gonna love Mrs. Sharp. She has a very similar comic tongue, and honestly, she made me chuckle out loud several times. Let me read you something. Oh, this is the first impression of Mrs. Sharp that Robert has. For his money, old Mrs. Sharp was quite capable of beating 7 different people between breakfast and lunch any day of the week. And then we've got another scene where Mrs. Sharp, who is accused of this kidnapping, this is once the investigation has already begun, is actually meeting face to face with the victim. And so this is her reaction. For a full 5 seconds, there was silence while she examined the girl's face with interest. For 2 people who are on beating terms, we are distressingly ill acquainted, she said at last. I hope to know you much better before this affair is finished, Miss Kane. I also really liked the character of the daughter, Miss Sharp. I love how she was written, especially at the end of the novel. Generally, I love the ending of the novel. But also, like I said before, the main character, Robert, you know, he's just this regular guy. Not much happens in his life, and you know, when he gets this phone call about the case, he suddenly comes alive. I have another quote for you. To that deuce country lawyer and gentleman, Robert Blair, Scotland Yard was as exotic as Xanadu, Hollywood, or parachuting. This is honestly so brilliantly written. Throughout the book, you've got a sense of quiet drama, which probably in the first half of the book is due to the writer very skillfully playing with us and switching our view from our idea on who the victim and who the suspect is, and does it several times in the first half of the book. However, really that quiet sense of drama for me comes from the characters and excellent analysis of humans' behavior and its motivation. You really get invested into these characters. There is a bit of social commentary as well, but that's not really the point of the book or the key focus of the book. This is an excellent, excellent crime, but not in the way that you read Agatha Christie, where you've got a puzzle to solve and you follow certain formula. This is definitely focused on the people within this book and the humor in it. It really, really helps. And like I said, it's a completely binging experience. For the first time in a long time, I didn't really want the book to end. So on one hand, I was binging it, but then I didn't want it to end either. By the way, this is supposed to be a book in a series. The series which are apparently connected through this detective, Scotland Yard detective called Alan Grant. However, in this book, he is just a secondary character who barely appears in it, and this is a third book in the series. You can read it on its own. You don't have to read any other books first, and apparently that's the case for all of Josephine Tey's novels. If you are in a reading slump, or maybe you, for whatever reason, are looking for that kind of book that is intelligent but also can draw you in that very effortless way, then this is a book for you. I highly recommend it, and also brilliant book if you want to get into classics. I can't believe this was written in 1948, and its sense of humor, its story, its writing still appeals to me as a modern reader in such a fantastic way. I highly recommend it. And if you have read anything by Josephine Tey, please let me know in the comments and let me know what you think, because I would be very interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in my next episode.